Hey guys, this is Hybrid, and today we are going to be reacting to 10 horror stories animated, or a compilation for December 2020. I'm catching up and I'm going to be reacting to more. Anyway, let's get into it. I've been wondering what these ones will be about. Anyway, let's get into it now.
I'm not much of a storyteller, so bear with me. During the 90s, I went through a very rough time in my life. After a failed marriage, I became a bit of a nomad,
Okay.
wandering across country
Oh
on
wait,
foot with
you
no
probably can't hear
particular
this, can you?
destination. It was a stupid idea, but I was in a very hopeless place back then,
Okay.
and just looking to experience something new. I've been traveling down South Dakota and hitched a ride with a truck driver into Nebraska. For those of you who have never been to that state, there are large sections of land that go on for miles with nothing but cornfields lining either side of the road. We split ways at a rest stop, and I made my way into what I now know to be the Sand Hills of Nebraska. The Sand Hills region is one of the most isolated areas in the United States. 20,000 square miles of nothing but dunes and prairies. I planned on hitchhiking my way to the nearest town and catching a bus to visit a friend I had in Omaha. But I found out the hard way that this stretch of road was not ideal for hitchhiking. I barely saw any cars going down this road, and the ones that did completely ignored me. 12 hours had passed, and I was running low on food and water. I was utterly exhausted at this point, and I needed to find a place to rest for a while. I had about an hour left of daylight. Lucky for me, I happened to come upon an old farmhouse that was situated about a half mile away from the main road.
Okay.
From a distance,
Don't tell me he's going to go
I thought
to it.
this place may have been occupied, but when I got closer, it was clear to me that this house was abandoned. This was around the fall, so weather in Nebraska wasn't terrible. However, the nights were a bit on the cold side, so I decided to hold up in this house for the night and continue my journey the next day.
He made a mistake by going into the first place, didn't he?
Enough supplies to last me one more night. The house was your typical rotting husk. Smelled like mold, severe water damage, creaking floors, etc. The living room seemed to be the only decent place to settle down at, so I unpacked my sleeping bag and eventually dozed off. I woke up to the sound of floorboards creaking.
Oh no.
I immediately sat up and listened. I could hear several pairs of footsteps thudding all around the house. They were coming from upstairs, downstairs, on the back porch outside, and even in the same room with me. But I didn't see a thing. I quickly got to my feet and walked over to the nearest window and peered out. What I saw was truly alarming and sent a wave of nausea through my entire body. Several cloaked figures were standing side by side. They appeared to be encircling the house. Because of the footsteps I heard, I thought there may have been people in the house with me. So in an effort to defuse things, I made another big brain decision and spoke up. Hello?
Joseph? Just all letting people, you're there.
I'm sorry if I'm trespassing. I was just looking for a place to rest for the night. I thought this place was abandoned. Again, I'm sorry. All the footsteps stopped at once. An eerie silence followed. It was so quiet that I could have heard a mouse shitting in the corner. I got this real bad feeling in my gut, so I reached into my backpack and pulled out my hunting knife. I gathered the rest of my things and slowly moved out into the hallway. Aside from the mysterious figures outside, I was also thinking of what was making those footsteps inside the house. As I said, I heard several footsteps when I woke up, so I figured it wouldn't be long before I ran into someone inside the house. But after combing the entire downstairs, I didn't see or hear anything. I could tell something was very off. That bad feeling I mentioned earlier intensified. despite the fact that I knew there was a bunch of weirdos in cloaks waiting for me outside. Something told me that if I didn't leave the house that very moment, something terrible was going to happen to me.
Yeah, you're probably not wrong.
The house was located in a wide open clearing. Beyond the clearing was a barrier of tall grass. When I left through the front door, I stopped directly in front of the house. No matter which direction I looked, I saw another hooded menace blocking my way. I suddenly felt this heat on my back. I quickly turned around. I cannot explain how this happened. Moments before, I was inside that house, walking around, and it was now on fire. I backed away. I decided I was going to run through the figures and get the hell out of Dodge. But when I turned back around, the figures were nowhere in sight.
There you are. So they just wanted to, I don't know, spook you?
Things were getting way too bizarre for me at that point. The only thing I knew for sure was that I had to get the fuck out of that place.
Run.
When I got back out to the main road, I didn't stop walking until I finally got to a town, whose name I can't remember. The rest of my time in Nebraska went well, and I got my life together shortly after I got back home from my trip. As long as I live, I'll never forget that old farmhouse and those mysterious cloaked figures. This incident still baffles me to this day, but perhaps some things are best left unanswered.
Okay, that was story 1. Do you think that I am a psychopath? I don't know. Are you? I'm just gonna note this one down. I'm gonna change this note I have every time.
Have you guys experienced this before? Of course, I can tell you that I'm a very normal person. However, I felt like I'm a psychopath when I was very young. Whenever I talk about this, it feels like I'm talking about someone else, but it's definitely my memory. Let me tell you some of my childhood memories. I'm going to start my first story lightly. My mom said that when I was young, I would often pick up a few worms from the ground, bring them home, and divide them into a few pieces with a shovel. Secondly, I dimly remember it, but after fighting with my sister, I always couldn't hold back my anger. So I used to walk around with a blade cutter to make a rattling sound, putting the blade up and down. My third story is, just when I learned walking around, I happily went to greet my second sister bringing a knife when she came home. That's what my mom said to me too. She said I especially liked knives when I was young, and I don't know why. Fourth story. One day my mom went to the bathroom to take a shower, leaving me alone in the living room. As I was a little child back then, I was watching TV, and there was a scene about a doctor who was doing surgery.
Oh no.
And I guess I wanted to copy his motion with the same way. So I stabbed myself in the stomach with a knife a little bit. My mom came out of the bathroom at the same time, and of course she was very surprised, even shocked. She took me to the emergency room that day. I had a slight surgical scar on my stomach until when I was in elementary school, so that can be a proof that it's a literally true story. The fifth, I recently found an album in the wardrobe a few days ago.
Okay.
The pictures were mainly about me and my mom. However, some of my mom's pictures in the album were kind of weird. It's like her eyes were cut out as someone had purposely pierced it. Hey Mom, what's wrong with these pictures? I asked her. And she answered, when you were a kid, you would always get angry and pierce my eyes on every picture of me whenever you argued with me. My mom in those pictures was smiling pretty when she was young, but I've ruined all of them. I felt really sorry. When I wrote down like this, I thought I was crazy or something, seriously. But when I was talking with my mom about the past, I didn't believe that I did it. And finally, the last story is the main point of why I had to write this. Because this is the one that only I remember, and which is that my mom will never know. I still don't know why. Anyway, I was in elementary school at the time. One day, around 3 p.m., my mom came back from work and fell asleep on the couch. Like a psycho in a thriller movie, I grabbed a big knife in the kitchen and slowly approached my mom. I went right in front of her and just stood there, staring at her for a long time. At this time, I felt like it was me doing this, but on the other hand, it was not me.
Hmm.
Then I remember that she twisted a little, as if she was going to wake up, and being surprised, I put the knife back in place. This story is a secret that I can never tell my mom, no matter how much time goes by.
You sure about that? I'm pretty sure she already knows if you ended up telling the story.
Pretty goosebumps, huh? But there's something even more creepy. Not long ago, my mom told me about her childhood story with her grandmother. It turned out she once stood behind my grandma's back holding a knife when she was a little kid.
So, is a bit genetic because she was a bit psychotic.
Like me. But when Grandma turned around and asked my mom what she was holding there, she finally recovered her consciousness. She put the knife back in the kitchen. You see, it's a very similar story to mine. Of course, she never knows what I did that day. She just told me her story accidentally.
Hmm.
Don't you guys think it's a creepy? I'm just wondering if the psychopath's temperament is the reason of genetics influence.
Who knows? Okay, that was story 2. So I'm just gonna mark this. Once I get to story 5, I'm gonna make a second part to this.
I never had a problem with insects. However, spiders were the only exception, because I was bitten by one a few years ago. So this is what happened to me. I was only 12 years old at the time. That day, we had a small party at school, where everyone had to bring something to eat. I went to the big table where the others had already put everything in place. After I found an empty seat, I took my small airtight container out of my backpack, but I froze as soon as I opened it. There were only insects left inside, and I could see some of the bugs falling on my legs
Oh,
and
God.
on both of my shoes. Everyone was staring at me in complete silence,
I will as well.
especially my teacher, who was even more terrified. She asked me how long the food had been in the container. Of course, I explained to her that I had only wrapped it this morning, but I was literally able to see all the insects moving around inside the container. Besides, this situation in front of my classmates was incredibly uncomfortable for me. It was embarrassing. That's why I ran to the restroom, trying to get rid of the insects. It was during the winter season, so when I headed home, it was already dark outside. After that terrible incident, I was walking along the usual route in a depressed mood, and suddenly, I heard rustling behind me. I stopped and looked around, but I couldn't see anything that could make that sound. Oh, well, it's probably just my imagination. However, as I continued to walk, I saw a middle-aged man with a disgusting face and greasy hair standing in front of me. What are you doing out here all alone so late, young lady? He asked me with a deep, low voice, and I replied that I was just on my way home, while nervous. None of my neighbors were there at the time. I froze and couldn't move a single muscle when he asked me if I was hungry. I know, I was such a fool. I answered yes. Then he offered me some of his food, but I turned it down at first. I was only thinking about what I should do at that moment, and how I could escape from the horrible situation. But when he opened his container, I couldn't believe my eyes. A horrible smell got into my nose, and I saw it. The bugs. A crowd of insects flew in my face with a deafening loud sound. In horror, I screamed and fell to my back on the road. My arm must have been injured, but I didn't have any time to feel my injury. When my gaze slowly went upwards, this weird man slowly took a bug and he ate it.
Oh, God. I don't know if this is horrifying or just making me feel like I'm gonna throw up.
As soon as I saw this very sight, I felt like I was going to throw up at any moment. All of a sudden, something started crawling up my leg, and there were spiders.
It's the giant enemy spider. Sorry. I recently watched this thing where this guy on an umbrella launched the top and it turned out to be a giant spider. And he said, "Is a giant Henry spider." The guy's stuck in my head. I can't stop thinking about it.
Over it. Being extremely terrified, I jumped up immediately and ran as quickly as I could. Fortunately, he didn't follow me, and I never saw that man again around my town. But the insect phobia has remained. I didn't tell my family about that incident because they wouldn't believe me anyway. Every time I see insects, the thought of him comes back to me. Even a ladybug scares me now. Nevertheless, there is a question that never leaves my head. If I had failed to run away that day, what would the man have tried to do with me?
Oh god, that's something no one wants to imagine, isn't it? Oh wait, that's story number 4, right?
I moved into an apartment a few years ago. Our new house seemed a little dark, and it was still chilly in the middle of summer. And after moving into the house, my family conspicuously began to act a little strange.
How
One day,
so?
my parents were in the living room sitting and watching TV, and something was weird. My dad was laughing with his eyes and mouth wide open.
Okay.
Laughing like this. And my mom was giggling like crazy. However, I was very young at that time, so I would often copy that figure, thinking that was kind of play for adults. And another day, they would have a conversation lying down at the kitchen table. Should we go now? No, later. No, we should go now.
So are they possessed or something?
Something like this. I began to get scared and decided to try some sort of exorcising spells that were popular in my elementary school at the time. It was a way to shout, "Go away, you lala," 3 times before going to bed. I know it's kind of childish, but anyway, it was one night after I did this a few more times. I was about to sleep. As soon as I lay down after turning off the lights,
Oh god, what happens?
my parents came into my room. I felt something was not good, and being scared, I was in my bed covering my face.
Oh god, don't show it.
And they sat next to my bed, one by one. Dad sat in that narrow gap between the bed and the balcony door and whispered in my ear, "What was that? Why did you do that?" He kept whispering the same thing, and I had no choice but to pretend to be asleep with fear. Long after I heard the door open, and when I opened my eyes to see if my parents had left, there was my mother. She was kneeling on my desk and smiling widely at me. Screaming, I ran out of the house on that road, fainted after a long run on the
So they were possessed. Ha, called it.
and was eventually found by the police passing by. After that, we had received help from our relatives and moved to a new apartment.
You know, I don't usually believe in ghosts, but on certain occasions, you just want to. Okay,
One
story
day,
5.
I had a nightmare while I was sleeping. Just realizing that I had sleep paralysis, I squeezed my voice and called my wife, and she immediately ran from my side. "Honey, are you okay?" I replied to her, Take my hand." However, the left door opened suddenly, and I could see my wife was running toward me at that
Hey, what? Wasn't she just with you?
moment. She held my hand, asking if I was okay, and I felt a moment of anxiety. so I turned my head to the right with all my might. The woman who ran at me at first, she was not my wife, of course. She was looking at me, dancing.
Is this your sleep paralysis demon? If so, at least you got one that looks like your wife. Pretty sure if I had the sleep paralysis demon, probably look like a girl I had a crush on, or an ex.
Strangely on the spot, and jumping beside me as if she got too excited. My wife soon turned on the lights. As soon as the lights came on, she disappeared from sight. Who was that woman? The
Sleep
woman
paralysis
in front
demon. Okay, look, we're at the halfway point. Ugh. I just had some sandwiches. Okay. That was, I think I'm gonna alter it to 6 stories. Just this once.
my window. It was the middle of the night. I was choosing my clothes for the next day's appointment. After picking out some of my clothes, I was looking at the mirror with them and suddenly heard a sound from the window. It was like someone clicked their tongue.
No. I heard that. I know that click. It's only the click of Ugandan knuckles. I heard many rumors, but never like this. Yeah, I'm only joking. That's probably some random ghost. The ghost
When
of
I
a dead
looked at the
meme.
window, there was a woman laughing with her face pressed down on the screen. I walked back in fear, quickly turned off the light. Then I woke up my dad, who was sleeping at that time. However, when we came back to the room, the woman was already gone. What's even scarier was that our house had its own yard, and it was on the other side of the houses in town. How did she get into our house and stand in front of my window? Whether she was a human or a ghost, I still have no idea who she was.
Okay. Yep. Okay. We're on story 7. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this reaction video. If you did, like, comment, and subscribe for more. And I'll make the part 2, and I'll finish this for part 2 soon, so you guys get the full little experience. And if you want me to react to more stuff, just leave comments or suggestions, you can call them. Just sorry, hiccups. Okay, anyway, like, comment, and subscribe for more videos just like this one. And I'll see you again later.